Nice. And by SOC, we're talking Security Operations Center, not a system on chip.
Nope, Security Operations Center. System on chip is a little too heavy for me.
Probably harder to build on this side of a mountain as well.
Yes, but building a Security Operations Center, it does feel like you're on the side of a mountain.
I have no doubt. I'm looking forward to hearing it. So unicorn collecting, that last thing, I want to hear more about that for a second, then I'll let you take it away. You
I have all the unicorns, like this one.
Nice.
Yeah, it's I am of the age that My Little Ponies were all the rage, and so I've always had unicorns.
Yep. So is that what drew you to GRIMMCon? Because it was hosted by Bryson?
Bryson. Yeah, actually, in some ways, that's part of the reason I heard about it. Bryce and I have definitely bonded over unicorns at DerbyCon over the last few years.
Nice. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming and showing us your stuff. I'm looking forward to hearing about it, especially since you can occasionally exit VI without Google or yelling help.
It took a lot of practice.
Cross the divide between VI, DoD Finance, and FSMA PCI. Oh my gosh, go for it. Have
Unicorn.
fun.
Thank you. Hello, I'm Lauren Rogers. We are here to talk about how to build a SOC in reality. So the obligatory who am I slide, lots of acronyms, lots of things. The big thing to know about me is that I am not the consultant and I am not a managed service provider. I work in the programs that I build every day, and I have been building programs for about 10 years when it comes to security specific programs. On the Twitters, I am known as Lil Lost.
And you got the love symbol there that you're holding up your hand, right? Love?
Yes. Oh, not me. Messed me up. My slides went crazy. Yes, that's totally love.
Awesome. Love it.
So you've decided to build a SOC, or you've been hired to build a SOC like I once was, and you're going, oh my gosh, what will I do? And the more you start to ask, and the more you look around the company that you are working for, you will feel like everything is a dumpster fire. And my way of looking at it is usually that it is a dumpster fire sitting in a lake of gasoline and there's kittens on the beach playing with matches. So that's just what I do. And I move forward and take it. And I'm going to show you some simple ways to just keep moving forward and to make the fire seem a lot more contained. So why are you building a SOC? You've been tasked for it, and you've got to ask yourself why and what model you will use. There's a lot of models to choose from, whether it's in-sourced or outsourced, or if you will do a hybrid model. So you do some in-sourcing and some outsourcing. There are a lot of people who will tell you a lot of things, and everybody will tell you what to do and the best way to build a SOC. There is no best way. So when you're feeling overwhelmed, you just stop and you breathe and you start doing your research, or you hide under the blanket. Like, that's actually one of my theories. That's my old one. So when you build a SOC, you go and you Google. The first thing you do, right? You go and Google how to build a SOC. Believe it or not, there's a lot out there. There are a lot of articles that will tell you what to do. These are some of them. These were recent when I built these slides. I forgot to check them this week, but they're all current companies, so they should still be recent. I believe, yeah, one of them was updated to be AT&T. It used to be AlienVault. MITRE, the top one, is probably your best how to build a SOC, but it's not a blog post. It's a book. It's a couple hundred pages, and it lives in a very perfect world. All of these live in a perfect world. Everybody knows exactly what their environment is. They have a complete inventory. They've got all the perfect things, and they live in a vacuum. I've never lived in that world. Everything I've done has been built from the ground up, usually kicking and screaming and dragging other people with me. So as you go looking at these resources, remember, they're a framework. Take them with a grain of salt and just keep moving forward, knowing that you know what is best for the business that you are in. There's also some books. There aren't a lot of books. When I first got into this, there weren't any books that I knew of, at least. These are listed, not the order. These are not listed in a particular order other than this is the order in which I read them. So it's probably their order of publication. Designing and Building Security Operations Center is the very first book I picked up. I actually read it on my phone because I didn't want anybody to know that I had this physical copy of a book when I was first starting out and first building my programs. Crafting the InfoSec playbook will help you just understand how to build playbooks and understand what you need to run through an investigation. Security Operations Center, Building and Operating Maintaining Your SOC is a great book, but it's Cisco Press. So just know that when you're looking at it, if you are not using Cisco technology, it may not all apply. But networking gear is networking gear, server gear is server gear. So a lot of the concepts in this book do apply. And the last book that I reference and I give to all of my newest analysts is the Defensive Security Handbook. It's a great book for people who are starting out. It is not SOC specific, but it'll give you a lot of tools and tips that will help somebody who is just starting in a SOC. So you've got these things. They're going to tell you all of the things that you need to do to build a SOC, but none of them directly apply to you. I'm going to give you the 5 things that I think are the most important takeaways from each of those articles and books. Number 1 is have a mission. Those blog posts especially will give you this big grandiose, I need to have a world-class SOC, it needs to be in the best of all the things. I'm going to say don't do that to yourself, but do have a mission. Think small, think about what you will do, what your company will do, and how will it work for you. Things to think about for a mission is, what do we do, who do we serve, and how do we do it? When you are building a SOC, there's all these different models you need to think about. And the best thing to do is to think about what is the overall goal of the SOC. What does the business want to achieve? What does your CIO or your CISO want to achieve? What will your hours of operation be? A lot of people who first take on the idea of a SOC go, we're going to be 24/7, but then they only want to hire 5 people. If you want to be 24/7, you need at least 11 people, and those people will be burned out. They won't have time for training, and there will be a lot of difficulties figuring out when just to take vacation. So then there's also the 9 to 5, which is 5 days a week. And you can do balance. You figure out what works for you and what works for your business. What does a mission look like? It will help you decide the level of response you have. What is your function? Are there other security teams within the organization? And I say this because some people's SOCs are a lot of different things. They may include networking, they may include vulnerability management, or they may have teams that do that. If you have those teams, that's great, and that can narrow the scope of your SOC, which is wonderful when you're starting out because there's a lot to do. And you have to think about what you will outsource. And the big important thing about a mission and having a mission statement is once everybody agrees on it at all levels within your organization, then you have something to fight for. When your CISO comes off of a conference call or returns from RSA with some grandiose idea, you can go, that's great, that's a wonderful idea, I would love to do that. Now, how does that work within our mission? If we need to change our mission, let's change our mission. But what will give? How will we get the resources to fulfill this new mission? It's great. It works really well for me. It's the fights that I fight every day. So as I go through these points, I'd like you to think about what your mission would be. What does it look like for a SOC? Right now, mine is to educate you and to give you tools that are not prescriptive because there is no single answer in building a SOC. So you've got your mission. Now you get your inventory. Those articles will tell you absolutely, you need to know absolutely everything. You need to know every system, everything that connects to your network, every application, every protocol. Those are great things. I would love to know those things about every little thing in my environment. But you know what? That's an impossible task unless you're starting with a brand new company or somebody has been maintaining it for a long time. So what do? You stop and you go looking. Doing an inventory is sometimes like threat hunting. You just go looking for things and you don't do it on a Friday afternoon because you're going to find problems. This is a shelf that was in a house that I live in. And we went looking and we pulled it down. And this is what we found behind the shelf. You will find ugly when you're building an inventory. So how do you go and you find that? Well, if you can go and physically look at devices, you go and physically look at devices if you're in a small organization. If you're in a larger organization, you do things like run Nmap. I love a tool that's fairly new called rumble.run. It's from HD Moore. It's fairly inexpensive, and there might even be a free version now. It's Nmap on steroids. It will help you build your inventory and tell you a lot about the systems on your network. Then work also with the other teams, your desktop teams and your server teams. Maybe they have SCCM or hypervisor reports through VMware or what other virtualization they may be using. Maybe they'll give you access to Azure or AWS so you can look at the different devices that they have running, the different servers. That's great if they do. And you just take that and you start making lists. I refer to them often as lists of doom. There's also network maps if you've got them. If you are lucky enough to work in a place that already has a wonderful inventory and somebody else already runs it, that's awesome. Then what you do is you start diving down into the depths of what is actually on those devices. What do they do? What protocols are they running? Services, applications? What does normal look like on every single one of those systems? So now you've got all of this. What do you do? Well, me as a SOC manager, I don't want to own it. I will help you find it, but I'm not going to own it. If you build it, you will own it. And I just avoid that at all costs. There are lots of places to store an inventory. So hopefully somebody at your organization will take ownership of that if they don't have it already. Some good places for that is a ticketing system. And as you build your tickets, you can attach the different items to it. I know that I've worked places where we actually had an inventory in the ticketing system, and I could see that I'd replaced the hard drive on the same system 15 times in the last year. Maybe I should look at the motherboard or the power supply and figure out why it's frying hard drive. So that is a great place to keep things. There is an open source program out there called Snipe IT. I believe there's a cloud version of it as well as an on-prem version. If you're in a smaller organization, maybe you can keep your inventory in a wiki. And then lastly, if nobody wants to take ownership of it and you have no idea what to do with it, I have spreadsheets of doom, tabs upon tabs of information about the systems that the security team uses and needs to build the program. Will I share that information? Yes, as needed. But in general, it's very security specific and very central to our needs for the SOC. Once you have all of that, what do you do with it? You got to know what's important. How I determine what's important is if on a good day, I get the important people in the room and I ask them about their system and ask them if their system is primary. Oftentimes you will find out that everybody thinks their system is primary. So what do? You ask them if you can call them at 2 a.m. on Sunday, on Christmas, when their server is down. You will find out a lot of those systems aren't as important to the business as they thought they were. It's great. It's a wonderful way to whittle down your list. Another way is to look at business recovery or disaster recovery, business continuity plans, and see what systems were deemed need to be restored right away. If you're in a business that doesn't have any of these things, you ask around or you guess. If you are in banking, your finance systems, your mainframes, or whatever runs your processing, it's probably a core system that you need to protect more. If you are in healthcare, it's probably your EMRs that you need to protect the most. And if you are in education, maybe your student information is what needs to be kept track of the best or protected the best. And then on top of that, you also don't forget about your finance and your business development systems. By finance, I mean payroll. Everybody wants to get paid. So trust me, you really want to protect those systems. And business development may keep the keys to the kingdom. It's the intellectual property that makes your business thrive. It's the secret recipe to Coca-Cola. Those things are also very important to be protected. And then what you do is you make a list and you just have a hierarchical inventory of what needs to be protected so that you have a roadmap of how to build your SOC. So you've got your mission, you've got your inventory. Now you need people. Do everything you can not to get these people. If you can get some of these people, you'd be a rock star. When I read those articles when I was first starting out, I got the impression that you needed to find the exact right person for the exact job right then, who could instantly make you do things. But I also didn't have the budget to hire the people who actually knew the things. So what do? You hire the best that you can get for the salary that you can pay. Some organizations, training is actually easier to get than salary. In some organizations, it's the opposite. Depending on your organization, get the best you can with what you have. If you can't pay the salary up front, but you can pay the training, then what you have later is a business case to give your people pay raises so that they stay. You don't want to spend all that money into building a program and to have them leave. But if you hire people who want to build the program and want to grow with you, and you give them the authority to do that, there's a good chance they will want to stay with you. So now we have a mission, we have an inventory, we have people, we need processes, all the processes. The blog posts and the books, they say you need processes, you need good processes, you need well-written processes. And then they don't give you examples of what those processes are. What does a full playbook look like? And then as you start digging into them, you'll realize that there is no playbook that matches your environment that you can just go and plug in. So when you're doing your hiring, I strongly suggest that you look for people, or especially one person who loves process, that they want to know what to do, and they want to know what to do next, and they want to write it down. Then you empower those people to work with anyone and everyone to write down the processes they need to fulfill the mission. If you bring in consultants to help you with your heavy lift on building your SOC, then make sure that your statement of work has in it that they will sit down with your process person and help them write the processes, or they will train the team on what they are actually building so that when they walk out the door, you don't lose all of that. If you have it in your statement of work that they will deliver processes and then you just wait for it when the close of the engagement occurs and they just hand you a stack, I guarantee you it will not necessarily fit your current program, and it very well may look like pretty much exactly what they gave the last program. The thing about processes is that they build slowly. So you just constantly change, and it's very iterative, and you just dedicate the team to building so that you have processes. I drive my team nuts because I like to point out, if you can't do something over and over again the same way, it's not really a process and it's not repeatable. And most importantly, you write it down. I like to use the analogy of, if you think it's an easy process and that anybody should be able to do it, can we hand it to somebody on the help desk? If we can hand it up to somebody on the help desk because they want to be cross-trained, or they want to move up, or we're overwhelmed and we need somebody to triage, that's a good process. If you can't hand your tier 1 processes to somebody on the help desk, is it a good process? Are your analysts or your team members using the processes that you've written and constantly so that they're providing feedback? One of the good ways to do this is to have your processes in a wiki, because then people can add notes and can update things as they go. And you can see who's adding to the processes, and if something gets removed and it accidentally and it shouldn't have been, it can be put back and easily tracked. Now, tools. This is the part where we could talk all day. So we have a mission, we have people, we have an inventory, we have processes. How do we put it all together? We put it all together with tools. The big thing to think about with all of the different tools that you need in building a SOC is, how will you manage them? Will they be open source or commercial? Will they be in-house or cloud? If they're open source, can you manage them? Elk, some people, I love it when people tell me that Elk is free. Yes, technically Elk is free, but do you have the processing to run Elk? Do you have the development resources to build the processes out to make it do the things that you need to do? Or are there other tools out there, other SIMs, Splunk or ArcSight? Do they work better for you? Will they help you in ways that, yes, you'll pay more money for them out the door, but will they have things that are built out of the box for you that will make you able to work? The most important thing about your tools in a SOC is that you have regular reevaluation of what you're doing. If a tool is not working for you, can you try something else? Or can you try it differently? Can you get you training on it? So important tools, knowledge management is one of them. Knowledge management isn't just your processes, but it's also your friendly intelligence. It's your security information based on that inventory, or the weird IP that you keep seeing over and over again, but it's really Dan Kaminsky scanning the internet. So you just need to have these things documented somewhere so that your team can see them. Some good knowledge management tools that are out there are MediaWiki, Confluent. I've seen people use OneNote and WordPress. SharePoint could be used, in Google Docs. Oftentimes, the knowledge management tool is based on what is available within the organization. If you're a Google organization, you'll probably find a Google tool that works for you that's already paid for. If you're a Microsoft Office 365, you very well may use a SharePoint tool if it works for you. The important thing about knowledge management is to be aware of access management. Who can get into it and who can make changes? Who can see what you guys are doing? Some of it doesn't matter if the whole world sees the processes for the SOC. There may be things listed in there that you don't want the whole world to know. The great thing about knowledge management tools is that they are fairly inexpensive if you're not going into the really big ones, or if you're using what's already available. So then if something fails or the model of it doesn't work, such as OneNote, because everybody's writing on the same page, you can try another one, try something different. Ticketing systems. Every IT team, every technology team needs some sort of ticketing system. You don't want email. It's not scalable. And then that really important thing will get sent to somebody who's on vacation. And then they won't see it for 4 days until after they get back from vacation. And then they'll assume that somebody else saw it and it'll be missed for 2 whole weeks. So you definitely want a ticketing system. I like using the same ticketing system as the IT team because then you can pass info around. But just like knowledge management, you want your ticketing system to have some sort of access control. You want to be able to, if you have a major incident, you want to make sure that people can't just go nosing around and figuring out what went wrong. You also don't want to be giving away information to the accounting. Maybe they're trying to figure out how not to get caught embezzling money or something crazy. You don't want them to be able to see where the gaps may be in your system and the new places that you need to find monitoring for. So just keep that in mind when you're looking at ticketing systems, is that you can keep other people out of them. In some ways, that may just be a SOC specific ticketing system that you have to manually, or hopefully using an API, send tickets to another IT ticketing system. That works too. Log management. This is where I spend my days. This is where I know that I'm weird, because I like looking at logs and figuring out what the data I have says and what it can do. For most SOCs, this is your bread and butter in a lot of ways. Find a tool that works for the mission, but most importantly, can help you grow towards the overlapping vision of the company. I really suggest you get something that helps you automate the pain. I once saw somebody using Sumo Logic, and I don't know a lot about Sumo Logic myself, but when I asked them to look up logs, they went and opened a folder for a day and just showed me this massive list. It didn't seem that there was any alerts in it. It didn't really do anything automatically for them. They had to know what they were looking for. When I'm looking for log management, I'm looking for something that can alert me, based on the information I give it, I can build alerts that will tell me, hey, this thing just happened flying through the air that you probably want to go look at. And that's what's really important to me in a log management system. Also, your log management system should have enough space to hold the data that your analysts need to answer questions. A lot of being an analyst is hypothesizing and then going looking for the answer to your question, figuring out what it is you need to know. Inventory systems. Like I talked about inventories, I don't want it to be my problem. I want it to be somebody else's problem. But if you're lucky, you should have access no matter what at the Security Operations Center. But also, if you're lucky, maybe you can add in security-related augmentation. I would love to be able to say that, hey, this workstation that sits at this site, we know it only turns on once a month, because that is when the clerk happens to walk into the office because they work from home the rest of the time. Things like that are really good to have in an inventory system. But as always, like I like to say, if you build it, you will own it. So when it comes to inventories, I do everything to assist, but I do not like to build. Vulnerability management tools, they are great. These may or may not be important to your SOC. It depends on the mission of the SOC and what other security teams are within the company. Say it is. You want to make sure you have a vulnerability management system that you can use to actually track vulnerabilities. It will scan, it will tell you what needs to be fixed, and hopefully you can have it tell you, stop telling me that this thing that needs to be fixed, that doesn't even apply to my system. quit telling me about it. And if you can get your vulnerability management system tied back into your ticketing system, that's also great, because you can use that to fire off tickets to the various teams to make their updates. So when they see there was a list of Cisco vulns today, great. Does my vulnerability management tool know about them? And if it does, can I scan and see if I'm susceptible? It's really good for a SOC to know also if you are susceptible to things, even if they are not responsible for vulnerability management. And then there's more tools. When it comes to the SOC, there are so many tools that it's so easy to just get wrapped into, oh my gosh, there is this cool thing that does awesome and I want to have it. But then you need to stop and think about it. Does it help your mission? How do you define incidents, and what level of response are you providing? Which is a good question when you're thinking about tools like Memorize and Recall. If you are at a place that has mining facilities and you have computers in a trailer in West Virginia that only function on dial-up, you're not going to be able to do hard drive capture on them because you think they got some piece of commodity malware. It's just not good for the business, and the business isn't going to want to spend the money or deal with the downtime, especially if that system's only purpose is processing payroll for the miners. The business will just want you to fix the system and rebuild it. And in these cases, it actually may be less time consuming to fly or drive out to that site and retrieve that hard drive than to try and capture it over the wire over dial-up, which is probably going to keep crashing on you. Another item to think about when you are looking at different tools, and like I said, there's a lot of them out there, is this a function of a SOC? Does the tool actually belong to another security team? Which could be the case with something like Cuckoo, I see Sandbox. Do you have a malware reversing team, or are you so small that you can't afford to spend the time and resources doing malware reversing? Which of these tools does something that maybe you're better off outsourcing? Do you have somebody on retainer to do your forensics for you? Then you don't necessarily need these. They're fun and they're great for learning, and I would never suggest that you don't do that. But when it comes to what do I need and what do I need to maintain, and do I have the people to maintain and stay up to date on them, you need to think about the mission of the SOC. One item that I don't have up here that I have learned a lot more about just in the last week is SOAR tools, which I think I did have Demisto on this list, and then there's Swim Lane, and there's some other tools out there. I believe ServiceNow has a SOAR tool. Most of them cost a fair amount of money, but they will automate a lot of the pain for your SOC. They will go out and capture automatically the OSINT details on IPs and URLs. That may be something that is worth looking into for your SOC, because it probably does definitely fit within your mission, and will definitely help with burnout of your analysts. So that is my little talk on building a SOC and not being overwhelmed. You stick with your 5 core things and build them around what your business is. And you at your company are probably, or people at your company with your help, are the best people to understand your business. So you need to know, what is your mission? What is your inventory? Find your people, build your processes, and find tools to support them. Thank you. That's all I have.
Excellent. Thank you, Lauren. Let's see, there's a comment from Edward Jones. Will these slides be available later? And then Coach John Stoner saying, these are the best slides, exclamation point. Much like that.
I can make them available. I don't have a place to make them available. So
Brian, we can do something about that, can't we?
Yeah, absolutely. If Lauren, if you just send them over to the folks that you've been coordinating with, we can make them available.
Okay, yeah, I can do that. Do some cleanup.
Very cool. Well, thank you. That was a
Best slide ever.
That took a very scary process and brought it into real world terms. I liked it a lot. Yeah. when we take on really big projects like creating a SOC, there's always the knowns that are scary, and then there's the unknowns that should scare us even more. So you being able to lay it out with some experience and some real world ideas of here are really the things you need to keep focused on. A lot of the other things may be just distractions. Here are the things you got to go with. It's really helpful.
Yeah, it can be definitely be overwhelming. The first time I built a program, I kind of fell into it, and then I more and more. And this time I was specifically hired a number of years ago now to build programs and build monitoring programs. And yes, at first it was crazy. Now I'm kind of like, I've just got things to do every single day.
So when you got dragged into creating your first SOC, how much of that slide that had all the tools on it, how much of that did you already know? Did you know many of those tools? Was that?
No, I come from mostly a desktop background and some servers, definitely Windows. So I didn't know a lot about automation. I had an idea about some of the forensic tools because that's a personal area that I really enjoy. But I mostly knew about how to look at systems and what is normal on a computer. What does normal look like? One of my most frustrating things for me when I was just doing general IT work and administrative work was when there would be a problem and somebody would go digging through logs and be like, oh, here's the problem. And I'd roll back to that exact same timestamp a week before, 2 weeks before, 30 days before, and be like, no, that's been going on for months and this problem's been around for 2 days. So being able to automate all of that and to find ways to not have to crawl through logs manually for me was just eye-opening and amazing.
Very cool. Yeah, you listed in your bio that you can make sense of logs, and then that is such a skill. I was talking to somebody doing police forensics, not digital, like real original world, Holly, what's her name from NCIS. And they said that if they had the level of detail, the amount of forensic evidence that we people in computers start off with, that their life would be so much easier. I think what I heard from you is it's actually too much information, and the ability to weed through that information that's so valuable that makes these tools come together.
Yeah, yes, it really is. And you're trying really hard not to. It's really easy to want to just take in all the data and all the logs. And I'm glad when I run into a point where I'm like, no, we need to start removing some and what's not important and what doesn't provide value during an investigation.
So in a SOC environment, a SOC team, do you find that forensics people and reverse engineers, where do you see them fitting into a SOC environment?
I actually haven't worked in a big enough SOC where we've had, like, our forensics can be outsourced. So instead, it's more of a knowing enough about forensics to not mess things up when you realize that you need to call somebody. But I definitely think that in a larger organization, forensics people could sit with the SOC, the tier 3, even higher. But everybody in the SOC needs to know something about forensics, because when there is something that happens, you don't want to go and mess up the system. You don't want to go and make changes to it. That's part of the reason I like offloading everything to log management tools, because then I can have all the information I need to know that I need to go and call the forensics people, whether they're in-house or outsourced.
Actually, I'm guessing, and I'm probably going to make a lot of big company security people upset about this, but I'm guessing that your point about knowing who to call and being able to outsource those responsibilities, it may scale and be the best option for a lot of things. But very cool. Yeah, good thoughts. Will you be in the Discord channel later?
Yeah, I've got it up on my other computer, and it went to a screensaver, so I can't see it right now. Yes, I will be in the Noob Track Discord.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for sharing your experience, your insights. It's been very informative.
Thank you.